Welcome to the Joy and Goal Setting Podcast, where we empower individuals to discover their purpose, achieve their goals, and experience a joyful life through encouraging conversation. I'm your host, Hudson Dodds. Today, we're sitting down with Jana Richter, former LPGA Tour player, golf coach, and mother of two. We're going to discuss her path to the tour, overcoming obstacles, how goals and dreams change, and how to support your children in goal pursuit. Jana, welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I'd love for you to tell me where you're from, what you're doing, and your favorite golf course you played and why.
I am originally from Czech Republic. It used to be Czechoslovakia. I am currently a golf coach at Rivertown Country Club, and a favorite golf course is a tough one. From the top of my head, I would say maybe Palmer Course in Berlin, Germany, where I played the World Masters when I was 20 years old. That was an experience for sure, yeah.
Yeah. So was it your favorite course because of the course, or is the experience what led you to choose that?
Both. The course was super neat, super special, beautiful, and just the whole experience of this tournament obviously had something to do with it too.
Yeah. So when did you come to the States?
I was 20 years old when I first came to States.
And what brought you here?
I wanted to be a professional golfer, and I needed to come here to learn how to speak English because I had my high school English and I just needed to perfect it a little bit, go through tests, SAT, TOEFL. We didn't have anything like that back home. So that was the step to make it to college first and then eventually play pro.
Do you remember a moment or a time when you said, when did you have that, I want to be a professional golfer?
Yes, I have a specific time and day when this happened. I was 10 years old. I played with a friend of mine on the golf course in Karlovy Vary, Czech Republic. We just played for fun. We usually were just thrown at the golf course because our parents played golf and they said, hey, 4 hours, you do whatever you want. Sometimes we didn't play. Sometimes we,
Goofed off.
And that particular day, we played 18 holes. And I'm like, well, we're doing it. I'm doing pretty good. It would be kind of cool to do this professionally. Why not? And
Yeah.
I asked my friend, her name was Monica, hey, why don't we start practicing super hard, harder than anybody else, and make it on the tour, make it on LPGA one day? And she looked at me, she's like, are you crazy? Because at that time, I didn't even know. I was 10. I didn't know that there was never, ever a player from my country that made it onto the tour at that point.
Yeah.
But I'm like, why not?
Yeah. Were there other things in your life other than golf that you've just gone all in like that? Or is golf from that early age, that's what's been your primary focus?
Definitely not. I loved volleyball. I played all the sports. I was fortunate to be athletic and kind of good at most of them. I really wanted to play volleyball, but I had a little injury. And at the time, doctors told me, hey, you cannot play volleyball for 3 years. So I was always very motivated. I always had big, I want to say maybe personality of achieving something, proving something to either myself or everybody else. And I guess that the golf was the next step because my family played. We always were on the golf course, and it was a hard sport. It was challenging, and I said, why not?
What was the women's game like growing up at home?
Well, it's difficult to say because, like I said, I was growing up in communist country when I was little. My dad was a rebel. He's gonna play golf. The golf was not allowed to play in Czech Republic at that time because it was kind of it's like classes. They didn't want anybody to be more than other. Everybody was supposed to have the same, be the same. We all have the same, no matter what job you have. And we all earn the same money. If you're a doctor or somebody that takes out trash, they didn't want that kind of difference, government. And so the golf was actually forbidden to play. And Dad, okay, I'm going to play golf, of course. And there are other people, pioneers that just love the game. And the golf courses were there from the First Republic before the communists took over. So golf courses were there, and few people, volunteers, just kind of took care of the courses and played. like with all sorts of crazy equipment. I mean, we obviously couldn't get stuff from outside, so they would cut down clubs or borrow or smuggle things in, and just it was very interesting time. And maybe Dad, being a little bit of a visionary, wanted us to play a little bit because he was hoping that this will end one day, and one day when this ends, he's gonna have kids that know how to play golf, and there'll be only a few kids in the country that know how to play
Give you a
golf.
leg up potentially.
Yes.
Yeah. So then how was it like training to wanting to be a pro in a space where it wasn't even allowed?
Well, I kind of decided that at 10. So so that was after the revolution.
okay.
So the revolution happened in 89. So about a year after, I was like, okay, I'm all in.
Got it. Nice.
Yeah.
And so then you came to the States and played in college?
I came to States and played in college. I first was supposed to go. I didn't know anything about the United States colleges. I didn't know there's a Division I, Division II, Division III. My dream was to go to California. I wanted to go to LA and, hey, maybe meet a movie star, and who knows? Like that was the whole point of wanting to go to San Diego. And that's where I ended up first to learn English. I went to Berlitz English, like a full immersion into English language. And I visited a college there without being announced or anything. I just didn't know how to do these things. With my resume, at that time, I was the best player in the country, had a lot of success in Europe as a European amateur golf player. So I had all this stack of papers with me going to college from this language school, like wanting to meet the coach and, hey, like, will you let me come and play for your college? And the lady didn't have time for me. It was UCLA, and she's like, you don't have an appointment, so we don't want to see you. But then through some friends, I found out that, hey, there's people in Connecticut, they are willing to talk to you. I went over there like, sure, full ride, come on, like we would love to have you. And that's where I made a lot of friends. Some people even like connected to college kind of helped me stay, helped me go to Simsbury High School where I did my SAT and TOEFL and get things started. But my brother was in Florida already, in college in Florida, playing golf as well. And it was kind of during the spring break. And he's like, why don't you come visit me? So I flew over to visit him for just a few days. And he's like, I'll take you to practice, with my team. And the ladies' team was there as well. And they're like, why don't you play with us? I'm like, okay. They put me with their number one player, and I birdied the first 3 holes. And the coaches are like, just please come here. Like, we give you everything you want. Just come here and play for our university. And that's where I ended up, because I thought in my head, it just makes sense being here with my brother. My parents didn't have a lot of money, so they'll have kids at the same spot. We'll share a car. And it's kind of warm the whole year round. I'll be able to practice and play more, which was the main goal. I wanted to be good. So I wanted to play and practice as much as I could.
And did you find success pretty quickly and easily in college as a
I came with an attitude that I'm the best. And I was number one player. I won many, many tournaments. I basically am in Hall of Fame in Florida Southern College, because in 3 semesters I was there, I won national championship twice in a row, and our team won national championship twice in a row. In those 3 semesters I was there. So I had a lot of success in college.
And then from there you took the leap to the tour.
So we had this number 2 tour, like a nationwide for the men, Futures Tour, it was called then. It changed names many times since, but Futures Tour came to Lakeland, where I was. The Florida Southern College is in Lakeland, between Orlando and Tampa. So I took a chance. I'm like, why not to try to qualify for the tour? There are like 350 players from all around the world trying to make it to this tour. And I knew I had to be like 35 top to get a full status and play. I'm like, why not try? And I played really, really well. And I made the full card for my first try. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's time. I can finish college at some other time.
Right.
It's just because I had that success and I had a lot of confidence going into it. I went for it.
Yeah. And so you get your card and you start traveling and playing. And
There was a little hiccup, unfortunately.
what was the hiccup?
So because I stayed and I was getting ready for this tournament, I overstayed my student visa.
Oh.
And I practiced during the summer, and the qualifying tour was in the fall. I made it. I stayed to work on my professional golf visa because being from outside of the country, I can just stay on my student visa anymore since I'm turning pro. It's a process. So I worked with my attorney at the time, and I left. And September 11 happened. I left for Christmas home, and I was supposed to travel back in January to start preparing for the tour, for my first year on tour. Unfortunately, because of September 11, there was this organization at the immigration services that just an independent organization, and they could tell anybody and everybody to turn around and go back home without a reason. And when I flew back to United States in January, I unfortunately met with a man that was convinced that I need to go back to Europe. And I'm not a professional player because Czech Republic people don't have professional players. And he turned me around, put in my papers that I was an admissible person, and I had to go back out of the country, and I can never return. So that was my my experience with coming back as a pro player first time.
Yeah. So you have these dreams and goals to be a professional athlete. You essentially reach them and then are told no. How did you handle that? How did you deal with that? What were things you drew on and how did you grow from it?
Well, I didn't accept no for an answer. Number one, I knew it was almost impossible to overturn his decision, but it was just not the right decision. I didn't do anything wrong, and I always believe that in God that the truth will, eventually come out. The truth. So we fought with my attorney. It was a difficult time because I didn't know what to do at home. It was cold and winter. I couldn't practice. And I also lost a little bit of the desire to practice because I didn't know if I'll ever make it back.
Right.
So definitely depressed, definitely not knowing what to do with myself. So I started working at McDonald's to just get my mind off it. Started just like doing anything and everything just to keep busy. And luckily, I had an amazing attorney, and he proven to everybody that I didn't do anything wrong. I had a professional playing visa, and somehow we overruled it. It was very lucky.
How long was that process from January you can't come to now you're back?
About 3-4 months. And by the time I was flying back, not only I didn't practice, but I lost a lot of a few tournaments at the beginning of the season. So now suddenly I showed up at the third tournament, not being ready for it. So coming from like a confidence-wise up high, I'm somewhere different place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that time, when you came to the States and you were in that moment of probably frustration, but also thankfulness, all those things, were there lessons that you at that moment had learned and can draw from, or looking back now, were there some lessons you can draw and say, this is how it shaped me from who I am today?
Well, I think any difficult experience you have in your life can make you stronger. And I don't like to dwell on bad things because I think that it's important to dwell on good things instead, because what will come of negativity and sadness and depression, I would rather hope that things will turn around and change. So yeah, just like really, I keep believing that if you really want something badly enough and you don't stop believing, and you don't let people tell you you cannot do this, and you really truly believe that it will happen, one way or another.
And so from there, you're working, and I'm assuming success wasn't quite as easy, or was it, as it was in college for you? When did you start?
So just because, as you know, like any professional athlete, when they lose a little bit of confidence or anything bad happens in their lives, it affects their performance and their confidence. And you do have to be confident and believe in yourself. So I did not have a great start that year. It took me almost the whole season to start making cuts. So it was a rough year, but also like I was doing what I love doing. So I was not dwelling, like I said, again, on everything, but it was difficult for my sponsors. There's always pressure when it comes to money. showing that you can make it, showing that you can, return some back. So not the easiest first year for sure.
Yeah. So you've had a pretty incredible drive, it seems.
I'm stubborn.
Do you feel that's innate in you? Is that something you were taught and it's who you are? Where do you feel like that drive comes from?
I think it's personality for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you start making some cuts, having some more success. How long did you play on the tour for?
I played 7, 8 years, and it was up and down. There's some great highs, and I don't know if I would recommend that life to everybody. It's not for everybody. It's very, very hard. It's very mentally draining. But if it's your dream, I mean, it's worth a shot. So you have to be prepared to work hard. You have to be prepared to fail. It's not fun. It's not easy. And most people usually fail. There's one winner, and there's usually a field of 144 players. So you're going to probably lose more than you win. Even if you're top 10, you're still going to lose more. So it is hard. It is hard to be a professional athlete, but the highs are incredible as well. So if you're that kind of personality that seeks high and lows, and you're a fighter, why not?
Yeah. So you fought for it. You achieved your ultimate goal from 10, right? And you become an athlete. You become a professional athlete. You have good success. 8 years, 7, 8 years on the tours. That's a very successful career. And then at some point, it's over. Walk me through that process. What was it like for you to find that moment, and then where did it take you afterwards?
I think it takes a while for people to realize when they're done. I was not that happy towards the end anymore because I think that my dreams changed a bit. I wanted to have a relationship. I wanted to have family. I was not getting any younger. The life on tour, traveling for 2 months at a time, constantly somewhere else, constantly on the road is hard. And I started realizing I'm not finding any relationship that are worth my while. I would have a boyfriend that I would leave and find out, hey, he couldn't wait for me as another girlfriend, or it was difficult to keep up a healthy relationship being a professional athlete. I know some people can do it successfully. I think you have to be a little lucky to find a partner that is willing to support you at that time. I really believe it's a little bit easier for men because women tend to be, and don't want to say this is set in stone, but I think that women tend to be able to support the career of a man, maybe going back in time a little bit easier than sometimes men. It might be changing in these times, but so I struggled finding a relationship, and I guess that's what I started wanting because I wanted to have family, I wanted to have children.
Yeah.
So the last few years were not making me as happy. I started seeing, I don't know if this is, and I also didn't have a huge amount of success. Yes, I would make it to US Open here and there, but I was not making cut at the US Open. I saw that I was not winning tournaments.
Performing quite the same as you used to.
Yeah, I had certain goals and I was not reaching them, and I'm running out of time almost. So to be honest, it's very difficult to quit something like this. Being a professional athlete and say, I'm done, I think it takes a lot of courage, because especially if you're young and you have this dream and that's all you have, because most of these people have this one dream. This is it. This is for my life. Now suddenly you're left with, gosh, what am I going to do with myself? I didn't finish college. And even though I might have some interest, which I always have, hey, I didn't study it. I don't know what's next for me. Yeah. So it is a scary space to walk into.
As an athlete, I mean, anyone has a big dream, whether it's being an athlete or whatever your business takes you to, or those dreams, when you succeed in them, they become, I would imagine, your identity a little bit, like you're kind of saying.
Absolutely.
Right?
Like you are a professional athlete. Yes, you're treated a certain way. You come somewhere and it's kind of nice to say, hey, I am a professional golfer.
Yeah.
And you identify with that for
Right.
sure.
And then if that identity is
Gone.
gone, then
Who
who
are
are
you?
you? Sure. So how did you go from I- well, I'll say two things. One, it seems like that's what your identity was and your values were around that. And then as you began to look around and say, this lifestyle, this identity is no longer matching the values that I have, which is family, wanting to move more towards a family, or allowing for that rather, then it began to shift. Did that make it easier to begin to re-identify with a purpose? Because we talk about identity, we think about purpose really, right? Like my purpose is to be an athlete, my purpose to whatever. Did that make it easier or still challenging? And when you did kind of make that leap, um, what was that like? Did you find yourself kind of down into depression, or did you find yourself easy to make a next step into a new identity?
It was very hard, very depressing. And I did not even lose just the dream, but I lived in the United States for 10 years and that became my home. So I also lost my home because being from another country, once your visa as a professional athlete is over, you're not able to stay and do whatever you want. So I had to move back to Europe now when decided my career as a professional golfer is over. So suddenly I'm completely out of place. I'm going back to where I started, which feels a little bit like a failure. Yeah, so it was hard.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But but like I said, I'm a fighter and I try to focus on positives. I like the adventure, and suddenly going back to Europe, I'm like, wow, I don't know anything how to like survive in Prague. I need to learn how to use a metro card. So it was all like challenge and new, and I really enjoyed that. I met a lot of interesting people that thought that I should teach because I know a lot about golf, which kind of made sense. And a lot of people welcome me with open arms and say, hey, you can teach at this facility in Prague. And oh, you can have my apartment in the middle of the city that overlooks the whole Prague if you give me a few lessons. So I had a lot of like help that came out of nowhere, like new people that heard of me being successful in states. Like Czech Republic is such a small country and nobody has never accomplished as much as I have. So when I came back home, it was kind of a big deal. So they were making it a big deal out of for me. But definitely was depressed. And how I dealt with it is I started writing. Like I don't know if any, I was never really a writer, but I just sat down and I started writing about my time on the tour and all the stories and things that I lived through and I remembered and the people I met and funny stories about host families and it really, really helped. Like getting it all out on the paper and kind of reliving it in my head really helped.
Yeah, I bet. And I'm sure looking back, you wouldn't say that this was what you were thinking, but I wonder too if it gave you a little bit of sense of purpose in that same way. And you were an athlete and you still are, you always will be, but also you kind of became a writer. And sometimes that identity, in the framework, we talk about identity statements and just simply calling yourself a writer, calling yourself an athlete gives you that confidence of who I am and the person I want to become. That's really, really interesting. And so you were writing and finding joy in that, finding some joy in teaching. And then
I decided I want to go back. And it was not very easy because I cannot just like decide to go back. I missed the United States. I missed my friends. It was basically for 10 years my life. So I started working on getting back, writing to all sorts of golf academies I knew I could think of. My resume and I put like a really nice picture of me in there too. And I got a phone call back from Jim McLean, which is unbelievable. He called me to Prague and he's like, well, I can't really hire you, but this was really fun to get. Like, nice to meet you and good luck. And eventually David Ledbetter that I used to take lessons from and some people knew me there and knew that I wanted to come back, reached out and say, hey, we would love to have you back.
Oh, nice.
So they helped me out getting another visa I needed to get, which was like a trainee visa because I had to go through his methodology, learn how he teaches, kind of stay there for 2 years, kind of a schooling and working at the same time. So that was my next visa, next adventure, going to learn how to teach golf.
Yeah. And you mentioned a lot about dreams, and we talk about framework dreams, and we talk about dream goals and how in some ways they can be similar. They are similar. We would say that they're the same. And you have continued to reach your dreams and reach your goals and have those successes. Now that you're back in the States and you have a family, what do your dreams and goals look like now? I mean, they're not to be a professional athlete anymore, which is grandiose and takes a lot of time and a lot of commitment, is in some ways not selfish in a bad way, but it's just about you, right? And now you have other people. So what do your dreams and goals look like now?
Yeah, of course, it's completely different now. I sometimes wonder how professional athletes can have a family and continue playing, because you do have to be a little bit selfish when you're out there. It's all about you. It's all about, I need sleep at this time. I need to eat these foods, and this is my routine. And so it's very much like self-oriented to perform the best. So now it's completely different. I feel like I don't matter, even though I obviously I do matter to my family, but it's mainly about my children that I love very much, and I'll do anything for them to succeed in life and find something that they love to do.
Yeah. So you, like I said, you've been very successful in achieving your goals. How have you passed on your drive or your whatever your goal setting framework has been in your own life, which may be just innate in you, but I'm sure there's still something in the way that you operate to achieve your goals. How have you passed it on to your children? Do you see that being something that you do intentionally, or what does it look like for you to be a mom?
I think it's good to have dreams. I always encourage now even my students, not just my children, to have a dream, because it's amazing to have a dream. It gives you a lot of energy. It gives you purpose to work hard at something, and it's just wonderful that something's out there that you're trying to reach. I like to tell my kids stories about successful people in the fields that they've chosen. So we always talk about, like, my son, for example, he loves tennis. So we go back and we talk about Novak Djokovic, how he came from Serbia and was during the war when he really struggled, and nobody really expected a kid like that to make a number one in the world and win 24 Grand Slams. So I try to give them examples of successful people, but also show them that it's not always easy, and they all have to overcome certain obstacles at times to make it to their destination. But like you said, the destination a lot of times may not be what makes people happy, but having a big dream. I like people having a big dream that they don't accomplish in a day or two. They can build up on certain things, and that's something I kind of resonated with me in Mark's book. He talks about having kind of a big dream, right, and having like steps in between, and you know that you're doing these steps or these routines towards your goal, and that I believe is important.
Yeah, the pursuit of the dream or the goal is just as satisfying, chemically speaking, right, and joyful as it is once you reach it. And so whether you reach it or not, if those dreams are aligned with the person you want to be, as you're moving towards it, you're becoming the person you want to be. And so we're rewarded for that chemically, right? And so we find those joys. So with your students and with your children, do you find it challenging for them to have a dream, to have a big, when I say dream, I mean a big enough dream, a big enough goal? Or do you find it easy? And does it depend on the age?
I think it depends on the child and age, for sure, because when they're little, they want to be a garbage, like they love the garbage truck and they want to do that, or they see what the parents are doing or people that they love or their favorite teachers. I want to be a teacher. I see that all the time. But then eventually they find things that they like to do themselves. And I think that's the time when start telling them the stories about, hey, you really can go very far. You can go to this beautiful Juilliard school if you practice your piano 30 minutes a day, but I do not like pushing things into doing things. It's more about inspiring them to really want to do it themselves, because pushing to me is, if you push your child too much, I believe they're not going to enjoy the process. They're not going to like it. So more of like an inspiration. Hey, what could happen if you do it? And obviously you want to highlight that they have talent and that you believe in them.
And support.
Yeah.
But support, not push.
Support means, hey, it would be good if your children come to you and say, hey, we have golf practice, please take me there, as opposed to, hey, you have golf, let's go.
Yeah.
It's and a lot of times I know that kids don't really know right from the start. We kind of watched our children from when they're very little, and we knew what their talents were, or we could kind of tell, hey, my child, one of them is athletic, one of them is more musically inclined. So we kind of try to introduce things that they potentially help them deciding what they want to do, not necessarily deciding for them.
Right.
This is the sport you're going to do,
Yeah.
and you're going to do sport, because they all have many talents that they can do. But just kind of watching them, observing them, and see, hey, she really likes this, so let's try a piano lesson if she, and just kind of finding and helping and supporting. And then obviously we support financially, and we
Right.
take them there, driving them, and do all we can, hoping.
Well, and as you support, in what aspects do you support through goal setting? What I mean by goal setting is, even like you just said, like 30 minutes a day. Because like kids can love something, but if they don't have a framework for how to practice or what that looks like to reach or achieve a longer term goal, then they're never going to, because they're kids. They don't know. So how have you helped your children, or have you kind of learn that process, learn what it takes to achieve a goal without pushing? Because that can be the challenge, right?
Definitely can be a challenge. I think that we all operate well if you have a routine. I believe that. So if you write things down for your kids, like let's say you make like a little plan. Every day you come from school, you do your homework. There's 30-minute window for piano. Then you have like, not necessarily every second of the day put down, but like having, okay. And they come and do it because they see it. And that kind of becomes a second nature. And you don't have to tell them, hey, you have to do, I remember, let's do piano. And the kids can be, oh, not today. If they get used to certain routine,
independent in the routine, and through that, they're learning that if I want to achieve anything, this routine is necessary. It's important for all things, not just sport at 13, but it could be whatever in the future. Learn that process. That's so interesting. Yeah, my kids are into soccer, and they love soccer. And you and my wife would hit it off. We have a morning routine that the kids go through all the things, and they have to stamp it and check it off. And we know from the framework side, when you do check those things off, there's real release of chemicals, right? And because we're achieving those little mini goals. And so even in that standpoint, from a kid to learn, when I have a written out goal, even if it's brush my teeth, that's still a goal. And a task, and I achieve it, like I'm rewarded for that, because I'm becoming the person I want to be, which is someone who is healthy, or someone who practices hard at piano, or fill in the blank.
I think it's huge, because I just putting something on their door in the morning, like, hey, brush the teeth, make the bed, and they check it all out. And maybe eventually after all these checks, you can go and have an ice cream, like reward them for doing all that. You're much less stressed, because in the morning they go through their routine, they're ready to go to school.
There's no
and
yelling,
I don't have
there's
to
no
like,
freaking out. Yeah, they're just doing it.
Did you brush your teeth? Did you eat your breakfast? Like, no, they just kind of, and they feel empowered too, because we're not constantly telling them, you have to do this, you have to do this. It has to come from them. They're gonna be eventually adults, and we're not gonna be there telling them what to do all the time.
That's right. Well, you make a really good point about dreams, and we found with coaching people through the framework, when they're younger, it's easy to dream and have really big dreams because you haven't failed a ton, and so of course everything feels within reach. And then the older you get, and at least what we've seen often, is it's really hard to have someone dream about the life role. So dream about in 50 years, where do you want to be with your health or with your community, with your family? It's really, really challenging. And I'm wondering, I mean, I think part of it is the more failure we have, the more limits we put on ourselves. And I think what you said earlier, this desire and drive that you've kind of innately had, I won't take no for an answer, is a growth mindset. It's a mindset of when I fail, it's not a failure that limits me. Instead, it's a failure that I can grow from. It actually enhances my opportunities. And then with golf, like you said, I mean, lots of failure, lots and lots of failure.
I mean, there will be obstacles in your way. Like when I was 17 years old, I was one of the best players in the country, and we went to play a tournament in Belgium, and we had a driver that crashed the car. I flew out of the window. He was going 85 miles an hour, and I destroyed every single bone in my body. They didn't think if I'm gonna live, if I'm gonna die, if I'm ever gonna walk. I was 4 months in a hospital. Then the recovery took forever. I didn't miss a golf season because I was so stubborn. Within a year, I was the best player in the country. They told me I'm never going to run marathon. I ran marathon because I don't like people telling me what I cannot do.
So to set a goal for you, I just didn't tell you what you can't do, and then you'll achieve it.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, like I don't like people telling me or setting these limits or being negative about something, because I really believe we can do anything. Like there are miracles happening in the world. And I think it's good to think that good things can come out even suddenly than living, oh, what if this happens? And what if I don't make this? I mean, like, why would you live in fear? Why wouldn't you give something a chance and see what happens and then accept the result and try again or try something else?
So you mentioned Mark's book. In Mark's book, he talks about Michael Phelps and the Olympic athletes who, like you said, their one identity and dream, everything is to win gold medals, whatever. And then once they do that, there's the huge decline in joy and depression ultimately because their identity is now gone. So I'm curious for you, and you talked a little bit about this, but as a golfer, as a professional golfer, which was your identity, how did you handle moving forward? And we touched on it, but I'm thinking more for the people that are listening that maybe they're about to reach their goals or may reach their dreams, or they're 10, 15 years away, and how can we help them to not fall into that trap? Because you talked earlier about it's not all, when you do succeed, it's not all what you might think it might be. It's the pursuit just as much as anything. So what are some ways that people could safeguard? What did you do, or what did you learn from maybe not doing those kinds of things?
Well, I wonder if somebody can set a higher goal. Like let's say Djokovic kind of could say, tennis player, that he reached his goal, number one in the world. He won the most Grand Slam ever, tied with maybe Margaret Court. So maybe he could be depressed kind of a way, right? However, maybe he can set new goals that are, hey, I'll make a few more and see if I can be a single one out there with the most majors. I don't know if you could potentially keep going if you still love what you do, or I don't know. It is a hard question, because if you like completely quit the sport that you identify with for so long, it probably will take you a little bit to recover from it. I don't know what. Maybe give yourself some time and slow down and look around and find happiness in little things. Read some books and maybe find other things that you might be good at or you enjoy.
Well, it sounded like you shifted your identity into being a coach and then to being, a family person.
True.
And those things. And that's a really good point. What we talk about framework-wise is exactly that, is if you're Djokovic, and as you're in a 10-year-old, Djokovic says, I want to have the most majors won. What we would say is, so that what? And usually the answer ends there. Well, I just want to have the most majors because that means I'm the best. But if you end there, then that's what the depression happens if you reach it. But if we said, okay, so that you could teach kids to play tennis until you're 65, okay, that's an awesome goal. And then so that why? well, then when I'm 95, I could play tennis with my great-great-grandkids. I could be healthy or whatever. So when he does do that, he knows, well, that goal was really just a short-term goal. And it was so that I could, when I'm 95, be here. It was a goal on the way. It was just like we said, the task of brushing my teeth every morning. It was another task. Of course you celebrate it, and of course you get, the chemical release from that. But it doesn't end there. And I think you're right. It's too short term. And I wonder, with the framework we talk about, what if we could help folks to, rather than set new goals afterwards, which of course you will, but do it from the earlier side. So when Djokovic at 10, someone could have said, all right, that's great, Novak, but why? And he probably wouldn't have an answer. And maybe even now wouldn't have an answer, just because that's what he wants to do. But then the continued moving forward afterwards, I think, is where we continue to find the joy, because we're becoming the human we want to be, not just simply succeeding, not just achieving a goal, which oftentimes I think people have some relationships with goals that are hard, because they either don't succeed, or when they do, feel, now what?
But luckily, like if you, let's say you have a successful career and your goals or dreams may change, that they're constantly kind of changing.
As humans, we
So
change,
especially
right?
like having family. So like he wasn't, or for example, he's in the position that he has little children, that he maybe naturally is going to shift towards being
Right.
more with the family, teaching them something, and his dreams might shift. Also, being successful, there's a lot of doors that will open to you. Hey, somebody will come up with an idea. We want you to be part of it because you were successful. We want your face, your name to be on this product. And they somehow find another interest.
Right, exactly. And then when you do that, it's not a failure at that point, because you're moving
No.
on. It's that it's still your values still align. Your action still aligns with who you want to become.
It's kind of like led you there, right? I'm supposed to be here because of all this, and that, and not just good things, but maybe sometimes even bad things.
Absolutely.
Help you to get to where you are. And you would hope that people live the life that they're happy with and they're grateful and enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. You're an incredible person, incredible story. I'm so thankful we had time to chat today.
Well, thank you so much.